Welcome back, everyone, to the second edition of the Honolulu Blue Breakdown. I'm Troy. We got Matt and Jordan with us here to talk Lions. We're going to recap the Washington Commanders game. We got a win, 44-22 in Washington. Crazy thing about this game, I was looking at the Lions' record against every single NFL team, and actually the team over all of Lions history that they're worst against is the Commanders. They're 17-28 all time against, the Commanders. And then if you go all the way back to the 20s when, it was the Lions were from Portsmouth and all the way back, but 17-28, they're only, and then at home, the only wins in Washington was actually in 1933, 1935, 2000, and then 2013 until Sunday. So
wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that at all.
Yeah.
70-year gap at one point.
Right. And they played a lot too. There was a lot of playoff losses, and the 90s were not very good.
Yeah. Is that who we lost to in 91?
Yeah.
Playoffs? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess let's jump right into the offense. Are we back on track here?
Yeah. I would say yes. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the whole Dan Campbell calling plays. Love him in the glasses there. But at the end of the day, like I couldn't have, wrote a better script of how the first three quarters would go. And honestly, I'm not sure if we punted while our starters were in. I'm sure, Troy, you probably got the stats on that. But the O-line played great, like not perfect by any means, but I don't think Goff got stacked. We had Jamo kind of going off, right? Gibbs had his runs, and it was great to see kind of doing what they used to do all last year and earlier this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was very enjoyable. I'm kind of a little reserved, like, is that more the defense of the Washington beat up, and just being kind of a rough year for them in general. They have an old team, but I'm gonna celebrate. I was a little worried after that Minnesota loss, but yeah, it feels like they're back on track. That felt like last year's Lions offense, like, is it Dan Campbell in those good looking glasses, right? Calling the plays. He's got the feel for the team. It's his team. Like, it seemed like there was purpose for, the calls. Sometimes with Johnny Moe, it almost felt like it was almost random or like desperation type of things. If we were losing there, it was like, we were in control the whole game. So maybe it's just, flying high here. Next week will be a great test. But I just want to shout out Waymo Jamo. Like, man, I love any game he gets going. I love that so much. He's so fun to root for.
Yeah, I loved how after the game when they asked Dan about the change, he kind of said, like, I have a certain way I want things to go. I don't remember his exact words, but essentially he was saying, this is my team and I want the offense to look a certain way. So I had to take control to either make it happen or show how I want it to happen. And yeah, he just has such a good feel for what the team needs. And you mentioned J-Mo, just the crossing routes that we hadn't seen, but he's just so wide open on every single one of them. And I did kind of have the same feeling as you, Jordan, where I was like, is this Dan taking the lead and fixing all our issues, or is Washington's defense just really bad? So, we'll talk about it later. I guess the next game will be a better test, but we didn't punt. Goff had time, and when he has time, he picks them apart. We can kind of see some of the stats here. I didn't realize Monty had as good of a game as he did. I think because all the focus was on Gibbs, who obviously had an amazing game, but even Monty, 15 carries for 71 yards.
That is wild. I didn't realize he got the same amount of carries too.
Yeah, me neither. So I was looking at it. So
yeah, I know Washington doesn't have the best run defense, but I know that was probably, I think in our last episode, one of the biggest concerns was our offensive line, the injuries, the inconsistent play, miscommunication, whatever else. But man, no sacks on Jared Goff, I believe, and we were running the ball at will. We look good watching those highlights. Like, they got the assignments, they got the blocks right. Like, there's just big lanes for our runners. So that was another good highlight.
Yeah.
I don't.
So do you?
I don't know if you want to get into this in a little bit or right now, but if Dan Campbell continues to call plays, like what is this going to look like for our friend Johnny Moe up in the booth?
That's what I was going to ask. I was wondering if you thought, is he the caller for the rest of the year, or is this like
You've
I'll show
you've
you
got
how
to
to do it?
believe at least
Yeah.
for the next few weeks, right? Like,
Yeah.
until, maybe we get in a groove and, into December. But at the same time, like, I don't think, if how many games do we have left? 7, maybe 8, I don't remember. But if we lose 1 or 2 games out of there, or like we're rolling into the playoffs or even into late December, you can't just go back to him. Like, that's the most important part of the year. So it'll be interesting the next 2-3 weeks if we go back or if it's all Dan. We'll see.
Yeah, I kind of think you got to stick with Dan the rest of the year now. I mean, the one thing when Johnny Moe was here the first time, was it 21? He was kind of just extra brain in the room, I guess, helping design plays. So hopefully he can kind of just fall back into that role. They obviously liked him when he was in that role because he was the name both Dan and Jared Goff wanted to be the OC. So hopefully him going back into that role, it's, feathers aren't ruffled, and
Yeah,
they
some
keep
of
it
those
going.
comments to your point were a little interesting too. Like, I think one of Dan's comments was, I know what my team or my players can do, and I know what they're capable of. And then he was talking about Johnny Morton, saying like, hey, he's a great team guy and all this good stuff, which sounds and looks great, but it's kind of like, all right, I can do this myself, kind of thing. So I don't know. Obviously we're not in the meeting rooms, we're not in the the play calling X's and O's part of it, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously a great call by him. Like, gosh, he's a great leader.
I did to note one more thing here on the play calling. I'll try and find it again and screenshot it and bring it up in a future episode. But I did see something along the lines of like, Morton was had a hand in Ben Johnson's development as a play caller. Like when he was here, there was, they were involved and they were working together. So I think that's maybe where the confidence came from Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. I feel like that was mentioned recently. I don't know if that was Dan Campbell talking about it in like a presser or if that was something else, but just kind of wanted to mention that. I'll try and find the exact source on
Yeah,
that.
I believe he's the passing game play designer or something. Like he's designs the pass plays. So that kind of tells me he might be really good at designing plays. He maybe just struggles when knowing which plays to call when, kind of
Hmm.
sequencing them together. And maybe that's where Dan, who, I don't know if being a former player really matters in this respect, but he just has such a great feel for what's going to work when. Just a guess, but
Yeah. Well, and didn't he also say like this is kind of how we started off with Ben,
mhm,
was it 3 years ago,
yeah,
where he wasn't calling every play, but I don't know if Dan was in Ben's ear or if Dan was actually calling the plays, but when he was named OC, he wasn't just given the green light and had all the freedom in the world. And I'm sure I realized that at the time, but kind of forgot about it. But it is kind of a testament to how smart Dan Campbell actually is. Like, it's said time and time again that he's very deceivingly smart, and he's kind of the whole package. I'm glad he's in Detroit, right? Like, he's
Wow.
a former player, he's a leader at heart, and he can run an offense, which is great.
yeah, you're exactly right. If I remember right, when his first year when Anthony Lynn was the head coach, when the season started, it was rough. I mean, they were rebuilding, but then Lynn got fired midway through or kind of put on the sidelines.
Yep.
And then Dan called the plays the second half of that year, and the offense started to look semi decent.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it was the very next year when Ben Johnson was the OC, but it was that thing where we didn't really know who was calling plays. Like Dan was kind of being really vague about it, maybe to kind of protect Ben and still teaching him. So, yeah, this is nothing new for him.
Yeah.
The TV shots of Johnny Moe in the booth is going to be awkward all year, though, because you know they're going to show that every game with him just sitting there not doing anything.
Yeah.
He's playing solitaire. Like Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
All right. Defense. What do we have on the defensive side here? So, obviously, backup quarterback, we kind of controlled him. Not any like crazy stats, like not, any ton of turnovers or ton of sacks, but just really a solid game where it never really felt like Washington was going to do anything.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I like the, picture here. It looks like our boy Dion Branch, but
hey, you called it. You called it in the last episode that he was going to have a big game because Vilma was calling it. And
that's right.
He had,
that's right.
Not 2 sacks, but what do you have? 1.5 sack right there. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And when he was off for that week, like, a few weeks ago, I missed him so much, and in our defense did too, even though they stepped up. But it's nice to see him out there healthy and back. And I think Rodrigo's coming back too soon, not to get into injuries, but I think the story of the year, truthfully, continues to be Jack Campbell. I know we talk about it almost every week, where he's kind of stepping up into being one of the elite linebackers in the league. So, I think he's going to serve a great purpose for years to come. I mean, you have 9 tackles and he's kind of running that defense. So, and Roy Lopez, like, obviously he's a great player. He was, look at those stats right there: 5 tackles, half a sack, 2 TFLs. And I didn't know who he was a few weeks ago. Right. So, people continue to step up. The other thing, I was looking at earlier too, and I didn't realize that Tyleik Williams has not had, the amount of snaps. Obviously, we have McNeil coming in healthy, and it's great to see him there, but limiting Tyleik's snaps, I didn't realize it just kind of watching the game overall the last 2 weeks. But it's kind of just a reminder of he's a rookie, and he played solid early on, but it's just a reminder that, hey, we already have a great D line, and he's going to learn from these folks and really, I'll say, develop into something great. But just kind of a reminder of, like, he's not there, but we do have great starters, and it's really good depth for us too.
Hey, yeah. The Pistons just won too. They won 124-113, so they pulled away there at the end. So another dub, Pistons.
Nice.
Shout out.
Detroit. 10 wins. Is that 10 or 9 wins now?
I think we're 10-2.
Nice. But yeah, Matt, to your point, and Troy, nice job including Roy Lopez. I think he did get a little bit of love from Dan and the media as well. Like that, he was wrecking. He was wrecking things, middle of the defensive line there. I looked into him a little bit when we signed him, just because I didn't know who he was. He came from Arizona, and it just sounded like fits their defense and Dan Campbell, just like the gritty, like, I'm going to stop the run, big guy in the middle. So nice to see him. Maybe he's getting more comfortable too in his role in the defense and all that. Tyleik Williams, I mean, you're learning behind Big Mac and DJ Reader too. That's a great spot to be in. You know what? When he was called upon early in the season before Aleem got back, it's like he was making plays. He was doing things. So that's the future's bright on that D line.
Yeah,
sure.
We got some depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and sorry, one more thing. Speaking of depth and injuries, I saw, how do you pronounce his last name? Hassanin or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he started back on the practice squad or he's starting his practice window, whatever. But I don't know if this is true or not. I'm sure you guys saw the same thing, where he was contacted by multiple teams to like be on their
Yeah.
practice squad or potentially even on the 53 roster, and turned it down to stay with the potential to get back on this team. So that
Hell
just says
yeah.
what kind of player he is, and what kind of team we are. So that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I did see that, and I believe it because I remember when they released him, a lot of people were obviously concerned, like why? But apparently there's a thing kind of in the NFL, if you get released with an injury settlement, you can't re-sign with a team until an agreed upon amount of weeks goes by. And so usually there's kind of an under the table agreement, like we'll release you and then in 10 weeks or whatever, we'll re-sign you. So that was probably the agreement. But once you're released, you can still sign with anyone. So he chose to stick with Detroit. Just shows the culture they have. I was going to mention, I don't know if you guys noticed, and we probably should never read into things that like young 20-year-olds do, but did you notice Brian Branch didn't have the green
Oh
mouth
my
guard on his
gosh.
helmet this
I
game?
Now that
didn't.
you say it, yeah.
I was wondering why it wasn't in the graphic. I was like, oh, we're missing it, but no, I didn't
Yeah.
notice.
So
Interesting.
I don't know if, I never thought that was like a sign of immaturity, but maybe that's him after the whole suspension thing. Maybe I don't know, maybe he felt he needed to switch things up, but that was interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's so the refs don't pick on him.
Could be
Or
that
he's
too.
maybe not pick on him, but easily
Yeah.
identify him as like a troublemaker, because I feel like
Right.
he's, and Hutch too with the leg swings and stuff. I feel like they're really
Yeah.
cracking down on some of those players.
Yeah. I did you notice that on your own, Troy, or did you see that somewhere?
No, I can't remember if they actually mentioned it on the broadcast, because I noticed it during the game, but they might have said it. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, because it's always so obvious. You just see it flopping around out there and it's green.
Yeah.
And Branch, he's always around the ball.
Yeah.
But
Doesn't Terrion Arnold have a green mouth guard as well?
yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't know
Is he
if
still
did you hear
rocking it?
the story about that? Because they're both from
Is
Bama.
yeah. Something with Bama, yeah.
Yeah, so it was when they were at Alabama, and I can't remember the exact story, but someone made a comment to the Alabama players that about green or something, and then they all decided to have green mouth guards or something. But
Yeah.
the one thing I wanted to talk about here was 2 of 10 on third down. That's the money down, they always say, and
Yeah.
just getting them into third down is one thing, but man, getting off the field that many times really is the key.
Yeah, I think our defense has been solid all year. I believe they're, like a top half overall defense as well. So it's like sometimes it's, well, like last week against Minnesota, or 2 weeks ago against Minnesota, it was kind of like the special teams that probably stuck out the most. I mean, the offense was definitely sputtering, and we've seen that a lot this year too. But I feel like for the most part, our defense has been more so reliable or consistent. Not saying that they've been awesome every game, but that's a nice change, because that's always been, our it seems like our biggest weakness in the past. So I've been enjoying the defense for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially the consistency of it. Like last year, I feel like we were so up and down, where this year, we have, I'll say, more consistent, like, hey, I feel good about how we're playing.
Yep. Cool. So I guess if we move over to special teams, not too much going on here. I like my graphic here has 2 footballs, if you notice. I couldn't quite get AI to not put 2 balls in there, but essentially, I mean, here Bates was money, 3 of 3. That was good to see. We didn't punt, like you mentioned earlier, Matt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fourth downs. Both teams were actually perfect on fourth down, which is kind of interesting. Lions were 2 of 2. Washington was 3 of 3. Yeah. The only kind of unique thing was that kickoff rule.
Yeah, I was going to mention that with the penalty.
Yeah, it was smart. At first, I was like, "What are they doing?"
I know.
Yeah, there was a couple weeks ago where I forget what team it was, but they did the same thing, and they were just like pointing out I mean, I guess I didn't realize with a penalty, like, you can actually just kick it out, right? And it was it the 25 that you start with? Yeah. So I mean, I'll be interested to see what changes come about after this year. but maybe they keep that in, whereas, the penalty will actually affect you, on your next drive.
Yeah. I wonder if kickers are good enough, because I was thinking because you mentioned this last pod is Bates has been really good at dropping it at the 1. And I was thinking, like, from the 50, I wonder if he could still do that, like just kick it really high and just have it drop right there. And since you're so much closer, well, actually,
But
yeah,
you
I
can't
guess,
start running until,
yeah, so
they
it doesn't
touch it
matter.
anyways. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
interesting.
Well, because there's I feel like 2 or 3 different, I'll say, automatic spots. And gosh, I mean, the football, YouTube podcast we are, haven't looked into the details of these punt rules, and maybe you guys have, but because there's, a starting at the 35, the 30, and I think the 25, obviously, and maybe even the 20 too. So it's just different, okay, where you first catch it, where you land it, all this good stuff.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know all the rules.
I know.
Like
It's
you said, they'll probably
it's
change next year too, or in a couple years.
right. Yeah, it's every time they kick it off, I'm like, all right, where are they starting? Is it the 25, 35, 30? Who knows?
I was
But
like, oh, cool, we're on the 40. Okay.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a little penalty. Cool.
yeah.
So we got the PFF grades there. I don't think any of those are really a surprise for our top 5. I just kind of threw that in there. How PFF saw the grades. I mean, really your usual suspects. JMO being on there kind of proves what we saw. And then Raymond, I guess they felt, I mean, he did have a couple big catches,
Yeah.
And one return, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So next we've got our Harrington to Hutchinson scale. So do you guys have your player this week?
Oof.
Where
Let's
are
hear
you?
yours, Troy. I know you got one up the sleeve.
And
Yes.
explain to us again what we're measuring
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so this is basically our week to week, how we're feeling about the team. So instead of just doing a scale of 1 to 10, we go Harrington to Hutchinson. So we got Joey Harrington. He was the quarterback who was essentially a bust. That would be the equivalent of a 0. We're not feeling good about the team. We're ready to blow it up, tank, that kind of thing, all the way up to Hutchinson. Hutchinson's a stud. We don't have any worries about him. He's always going to bring it. That would be us essentially saying we're Super Bowl or bust kind of thing, or best team in the NFL. So what we'd like to do here is we just say where we are on the scale between Harrington and Hutchinson, and then each week we can kind of see where we're at. So it's just a reminder, last week we all were pretty good players that had some minor flaws, I guess, some worrying flaws. I remember Matt had Golden Tate, who was a great player, but was a little smaller, maybe didn't have the breakaway speed. I had Javid Best, who was a great player but couldn't stay healthy. And then Jordan, trying to remember who you had.
Rhymes with Chevy.
Oh, DeAndre Levy, yes. Yes, also like a Pro Bowl caliber player who was kind of a flash in the pan couple of years. So essentially good players with, weaknesses. So I guess my player for this week, I'm going to go with 2015 Ezekiel Ansah.
Oh, Ziggy.
Yeah, so that was his best year. He had 14 and a half sacks.
Nice.
And the reason, so I'm feeling pretty good about the team, but obviously Ziggy was never Hutchinson. It was, again, kind of a Levy situation where it was 1 year he was, it always kind of felt like he was good, but never could 100% count on him. And he obviously had 1 year that was good, but it's still kind of, I need to see a little more of it before I fully buy in, I guess, is kind of where I'm at, but I'm feeling pretty good.
All right. I got one if you need to
go
say.
for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. It's not a great fit. I don't know exactly how I'm feeling, but I think just kind of my gut going right away. I thought a big play Slay.
Mm.
And I know he's probably even in his prime was maybe a little bit higher caliber than what I should give this team currently credit for. But just the thought of him, I remember him just like sealing games with an interception, like the big play aspect, big play slay. I think this team, in order to reach as far as where we want to go, whether that's the 1 seed Super Bowl, NFC championship, like realistically where we're going to get, we got to have that mentality where it's like we got to make the big plays. We got to make the fourth downs. We got to force turnovers, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure. He's no Hutch, I'd say. He's probably multi Pro Bowl player, but that might be a little too high on based on how I'm feeling. But that's just what I thought of.
Nice. I don't think this is a great comparison. The only reason that he's come to mind is I got his autograph when I was like 6 or 7 years old, maybe. But Luther Ellis, he was a stud back in the 90s on our D line. And, I wasn't super into the NFL back then, but I loved the Lions, and he was, I got my picture with him and everything for, I don't remember the reason, but, stud, so having the talent, and, maybe not the flashiest guy in the NFL, but, more of a, grinded out kind of get physical, and this team's very physical. And I think that's at least the identity that we want to be in, that I think, we're showing from week to week, so that's what I'm going to go.
I like that. Yeah, we're all a little bit of a step up from last week. I guess that's to be expected.
Yeah.
All
have to
right.
do my homework on more Lions players really digging the well here.
I know. I got to remember that for next week.
I know. It's fun.
All right. Flipping forward a week here. We got the Eagles Sunday night, prime time in Philly. I got a couple stats here too, because we talked about the Commanders and how the Lions historically, haven't been very successful against Washington. Well, Philly, it's not too much better. We're actually, out of all the teams, the 7th worst against Philly, 16, 19, and 2, so almost 500. Ironically, I was, off the top of my head, I couldn't remember the last time we beat Philly, but it actually was just 2019, and it was in Philly. We won 27-24, and just out of curiosity, take a guess at who our running backs for that game were in 2019 at Philly.
2019 at Philly.
There was 2 of them who you could argue were the top rushers in that game. They're
oh my gosh,
long lost.
Abdullah,
no,
one of them.
This is probably too far back. Zach
Zenner.
Yeah,
that's a good one. No, so
I'm thinking too far back though.
Leading the team in yards was J.D. McKissick. He had 1 carry for 41 yards, and then the player with the most carries was Kerryon Johnson.
Oh,
Kerryon Johnson.
Wow,
I haven't heard that name in years.
Damn.
And get a load of this. He had 20 carries for 36 yards. So it was, but they won. I don't know how, but and then in road games in Philly, they're actually 10-10. So I was kind of surprised by that too. But 4 of those wins were actually the first 4 games they ever played against Philly in like the 30s. So I guess we probably can't count those. In our lifetime, the Lions are 2-5 against the Eagles. So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Speaking of past games, I'll never forget that snow game. I think like 10, 11, 12 years ago. That was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it'll be a tough test. I do like our chances. But the Eagles defense and their D line is probably my biggest, I'll say fear with that team. I'll be curious to see, how our defense holds up too. Just because I feel like at any given game, Jalen Hurts and the offense can go off, even though they only scored 10 points up in Green Bay last week. So obviously another great test for us. It's prime time though, which I think helps our chances for whatever reason. We always show up in prime time. We compete. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I got some notes on the defense. The Philly defense has actually been pretty rough this year. They're 26th in the pass yards allowed, and 21st in the rush. So vulnerable. However, I feel like they have been kind of tightening up lately. I just wanted to note that Jalen Phillips, I know I had mentioned that. I don't know if it was on an episode or on our texts, but that trade, he had a great game in his debut for the Eagles, and I'm just like, oh, like I love the Lions, I love the Office, I love Brad, MCDC, but it's like that was one name where I was like, just go get him. The Dolphins got to be selling everybody, and then he goes to the Eagles, of course, and has good games. So if he's sacking Goff or if he's making plays, I'm going to be like clenching my teeth a little bit too much. But interestingly, these teams I feel like are a little similar to like big expectations for the Lions and the Eagles this year from, national audience. Like everybody's probably thinking the same thing. We're both doing well, but it's interesting because we both have losses to like a mid to bad division team, like us, the Vikings, and them, the Giants. And then also, we both lost to like a contending AFC team. We lost to the Chiefs, who they lost to the Broncos. So it's like we're kind of similar. They've been a little inconsistent as well. There's been question marks. So this is a big game, obviously, for both of us. But just from like an outside perspective, if you're not a fan or like the analysts, from the outside looking in, it's going to be interesting to see if one team, really takes control, or if it's just a duke, battle. We're duking it out, and it's comes down to the last possession. Like, be interesting.
Yeah, I feel like anything can really happen this week.
Yeah, I like your stats about the Eagles defense because I kind of feel like our best shot is to make it a shootout. Like if it becomes a low scoring and then, they're running it with Saquon and doing the tush push thing, that's going to be painful. But if we can get out there and just score and just force them to keep up with us, if we can hit 30, 35 points, like our offense is certainly capable of, I don't know if Jalen Hurts can keep pace with Goff, in a shootout. So,
yeah.
But yeah, they're scary. They're a scary team. But, I like seeing us at the top of the North again. The crazy thing about the NFC standings, if the season ended today, we're hosting Stafford, which I don't think I can take another one of those games.
Gosh, I know. And we still have to go to LA too this year.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I think the NFC is just so loaded this year where it's like every game is just gonna be like, assuming, knock on wood, we get into the playoffs, right? Like look at those teams. I mean, Chicago even is playing well, right? So there's just the NFC is loaded. And you look at Seattle up there, Philly, obviously, Tampa is still around. They're going to be there. Rams are probably, it might be Super Bowl favorites right now. So it's just any game, I feel like it's just going to be grinded out. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, next we just kind of have a little 2026 outlook. Not too much here, I guess, to really talk about since we're well into this year. I just kind of highlighted a couple things. Obviously, we have 2 coach openings. Giants fired their coach. That sort of affects us because we do play the Giants yet this year. And then I just mentioned some of our key free agents. So these are a few guys who are key players for us that are free agents. So take of that what you will, who we think we want to resign, who probably won't, but I just listed them there. And then I know we don't really care about mock drafts yet because we're into the season, but I was thinking about, one of the big things is our offensive line. And, obviously with Glasgow and Decker, they're getting older. We probably need, that's probably our biggest need. And obviously after losing Ragnow last year, Decker's kind of a similar situation where he's a vet who's had a lot of injuries. Who knows how many more years he has, only he does. But in these mock drafts, I listed basically where all the linemen went to kind of get a feel for where we would be picking. So just so you know, the blue ones are who the mock drafts had us taking. So in both drafts, they had us taking an edge, which was sort of interesting. And they had us picking 24th and then 21st. I assume our pick will probably be a little later in the 20s, but you can see there's a lot of offensive linemen that are, according to these two mocks, already gone. So if we were thinking O-line, we're kind of looking at the 5th or 6th best O-lineman maybe. You know, because there's no like real quarterbacks this year. So it's like probably going to be a run on the big guys.
Yeah. Brad loves his trades on draft day, though. Tell you what.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. He'll go get someone.
You would think they're going to identify the trenches after this year too, just even if it's a depth sort of thing. If Decker's still playing, you would think that like it's hard for me to imagine it. We've been wanting another edge for so long. I feel like they're not going like I feel like we'll see secondary or offensive line as of now before we see an edge player. So who knows?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that too. And I hope, and obviously we have so much left of this season, but continue to build the trenches on both sides. But in free agency, that's where I would like to go after the secondary a little bit more. Our safeties are great, but a cornerback, because I feel like it's just so much harder to hit on a corner in the draft, where it's just like, we've tried so often, with obviously this was the previous regime. Gosh, I can't even remember his name anymore. Out of Ohio State. Okuda, thank you. And no disrespect to him, but that was just kind of a change of realm, I think, and whatever. But I think it's so much harder to hit on a corner versus a lineman in the draft. So that's what I would like to see, at least.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a good call.
And then free agent signings too. I mean, that's an interesting list there. I could see them trying to bring everybody back, depending if we can get any veterans on like team-friendly deals. Like Anzalone, I would think wouldn't move on from us. DJ Reader, I don't know if we need him necessarily with Tyreek Williams, and I don't know how long we got Lopez for and Mac. As much as I've enjoyed watching Reader, help in the middle there. I could see a Meek maybe moving on to go be, more of a feature starter like he's proven himself, but he fits us so well too. Khalif, I don't see them, unless he's slowing down, I don't see them letting him leave. He's done a great job for what they ask him to do. He's a good blocker as well. So I feel like a lot of those we might see coming back if we can get friendly deals on some of the vets. Even Josh Pascal, I feel like they got a soft spot in his heart, or in their hearts for him. For what he's been through and continues to go through, and they just kind of seem to like the injured players as well. Or I guess he might not even be injured right now. But anyway, that's an interesting free agent list. It'll be cool to see what they do.
Yeah, I kind of felt like a Meek. To me, that was the main one to bring back. I just feel like, especially with all the injuries they've had in the secondary, he's been the one that's stayed healthy. Obviously, in the playoffs last year, he broke his arm, and that kind of ended our shot. But he was one, I kind of feel like he embodies the grit mentality. So he was the one on this list. I was like, oh, they got to bring him back. I'll note Jake Bates. It was a little confusing with NFL contracts with young players. There's different levels. So I don't know if Jake Bates is an actual free agent or a restricted free agent or how that works, but I put him on there. I assume that he'll be back, obviously. Anzalone's a weird one, though, after this year's kind of drama.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. That's one where I actually feel like he's kind of gone, as much as I love him, where we've got I feel like linebacker is one of our strongest positions right now. Obviously, Anzalone is a big part of that. But you have Campbell; he's going to get a big deal probably next summer. Oh gosh, we got Barnes; he's so solid too, and Rodriguez coming back. We'll see what he looks like the rest of the year. So, it'll be interesting. But I don't know. Maybe Anzalone will have. I know he was fighting for more money this year to get kind of an extension, and never really met in the middle there. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it's just so hard for me to think. Like, I don't know. Like you said, we got good depth there. We got some great young guys. but like he came over with, from the Saints with Dan, and I feel like they're almost more
Yeah.
brothers than player and coach. So it's going to come down to, does he really want to continue, like starting and having that sort of, the money and all that, or if you have that good of a culture or relationship, maybe he comes back and he's just like that leader veteran that, gives up some of his playing time, which I guess he kind of already has a little bit, but it'll be interesting. That one for
Yeah.
sure. Put a star by that one to see how they handle that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we have any last thoughts on this week, or are we ready to sweat one out against Philly?
One more thing I wanted to mention, and next week I'll kind of put some visuals and a slide together in there for us, but I did want to note we wore the silver pants last week.
Yeah.
That's the first time that we've worn it in this uniform regime that we, came out with last year. Last time we wore white jerseys with silver pants was in 23 against the Bucks. We also won that game. So I was kind of indifferent about the uniforms before. Obviously it helps when you win, but I do like the white and the silver pants, not as a primary, but I did like that uniform overall. And going towards Philly here, I'm thinking, let's just go back to white on white pants, not to get too cute with it. I think last year we went monochrome or mono, white, mono, blue, I think all but 1 week where we went blue and silver and lost that game. But I'd like us to get a little bit more back to, a little bit more variation. Maybe not every single week, but I was glad we changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the white tops with the blue bottoms, but maybe not this week. Like maybe save that for Chicago or something.
Yeah, no,
I
would agree. Yep.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week. We'll see how we're at. Thanks for watching us here on the Honolulu Blue Breakdown. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I like it. And yeah, we'll survive another week down. See ya.
See y'all.